hopefully this will. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, next slide. Okay, next, go again, yeah. No worries. Okay, so this is the site here. Can you go to the next slide? Yeah, so the gym, you can see the gym there, and then the access way to the west of the site here. And this element, they're going to extend 3 meters and fill the side as well. Next slide. As you can see, the access way is around the side. It's not the front door as explained earlier. That's access to the second and third, first and second floor flat. You see the gym in the foreground. Next slide, sorry. So they're going to fill this area here, coming from the roof, same height, it's going to be 2.4 meters to the eaves along the side of the access way. It's going to extend up to around the grass area, 3 meters out. It's going to leave 3.4 meters of amenity space for the garden. Next, please. The gate, see the access way, the gate is there. The gate's going to be moved along slightly towards the gym, simply because the extension is going to cover where the gate is now. Next slide. As you can see, so there's no windows in the gym there, and some light coming in from the sides. We've had a couple of objections. It was called in by Councillor Chambers due to the size. The project is a bit too big for the plot. We've had an objection from the gym, the occupants of the building. They've objected on the grounds that it's overdevelopment of the site, and concerns about noise complaints rather emanating from the occupants of the flat in regards to noise from the gym. The Buckers Hill Parish Council have objected due to overdevelopment and the loss of garden amenity space. The manager or the owner of the building the gym is in has also objected on grounds of insufficient amenity space for a 2-bedroom flat, and again concerns about potential increase of noise complaints emanating from the occupants of the flat against the gym. Given that it's a ground floor flat, it's considered that the 3.4 metre depth of the garden is sufficient amenity space. You see there's plenty of rooms to store bins if needed in the rear garden. It is a strange layout, obviously, because there's no immediate neighbours really that it affects, but it's considered that it doesn't have any impact on neighbour immunity. It's not visible from the street scene either. It's accepted in design terms also, and that's why we've put it forward to be granted. And these are the plans here, as you can see. So it incorporates the height of the rear element as it is now. There's going to be bifold doors there. Infills the gap between the access road and the rear extension in situ. And there's going to be 3 meters. Obviously, there's plenty of space there in the garden as well. You see the existing dimensions there. That's why we've recommended for approval.
Thank you. We have a speaker, the applicant on this application, Jack Blair.
Hello.
You have 3 minutes.
Okay, so I've owned, ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've owned this flat for 6 years, and in this time its immediate surroundings have changed. To the east, a larger 3-storey block of flats, Ivy Dean Court, has been erected. And to the rear, the boxing gym now contains 2 gyms and a physiotherapist. Given the immediate surroundings of my flat vary in size and types of use, I feel my proposal is of a size, scale and design that's inferior to its surrounding buildings. My application bears no detrimental impact on loss of light or privacy to the immediate neighbouring buildings, this being my main goal when designing. A rear garden area 3.4 metres in depth and 4 metres in width will remain with space for refuge bin storage within. The amenity space is of satisfactory size and designed for a modern 2-bedroom flat, this being my main motivation to extend, as we all work from home more often and frequently now. The extension will offer me more space to do this. Overall, my proposal complements and enhances the existing building, as well as the character and appearance of the wider area. In my opinion, the proposed does not constitute overdevelopment of the site. With this in mind, I hope you vote in favour. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm now going to go to members, and I'd like to ask Councillor Chambers, who called this application in, to
Sure.
start us off with your explanation of why you called it in.
Sure, thanks, Chairman. Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I called in at the time was the plans were originally pretty poor, but tonight what we've seen has been much clearer. I certainly I wouldn't have called this in to necessarily object to it. I wouldn't be one to fet my discretion that way. So I just wanted to clarify that. I'm always open to the debate and to see the clearer plans. I don't think it is overdevelopment of the site. After seeing those plans, the only small issue I perhaps might have with it, and I'd sort of welcome other people's thoughts, is and where we stand from a planning point of view, with the access so near to the commercial unit with the gym. That may not be a planning matter, and if that is the case, then there's no reason to object to this.
Members.
So that's a question, Chairman, to the planning officer. You know, is it a planning merit, the access so close to the gym?
That wouldn't be a planning consideration, though. They can have the gate closer to the building, as long as it's not right next to it. It's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, Councillor Aniket Patel would like to speak as well.
Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm also one of the ward councillors for where this application site is.
Indeed.
I just hearing some of the comments made by the applicant himself. He's quite right that the area where his flat is has had some significant building works in its locality, especially Denley Court next door, and mustn't forget as well that the boxing gym, the structure of the boxing gym isn't what it is now. That second story, I remember the applicant applying for that maybe 4 or 5 years ago to create a vertical mansard. So obviously that's quite an imposing structure on these flats. In any case, this is a single story extension with the flats contained on ground floor. I can't see any issues with this, and I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, Councillor Simon Heap wishes to speak next.
Councillor Heap.
Oh, thank you. Yes, Councillor Patel's answered. Brought up most of the points. The only concern would be that the roof level changes according to the maximum eave, but that's it. I don't see any reason to object.
Thank you, Councillor Heap. Any other commentators?
Yes, we have, Councillor Pond.
Councillor Pond.
Yes, could the officer tell us, please, how much private amenity space in square metres there are, plus how many of the flat holders share that private amenity space?
I know there's 3.4 metres in depth. I'm not sure on the square meterage. It's only the ground floor flat that has access to the rear garden. Obviously, be a 2-bedroom flat.
Yeah, well, I made that 14.6 square metres.
This second.
Oh, thank you.
And Chair, the next speaker is Councillor Wixley, please.
Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, thank you. I just wonder if we go back to the drawing showing the rear elevation. I've just got a query about that, out of curiosity, actually. Yeah, my question is that as the building is, if we could just go back, concentrate on that might do. Yeah, my query was I wasn't, if this building is extended, as I understand it, what's the situation regarding the window, which you can just partially see at the left-hand side? Will that actually, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Will that no longer have daylight in it, or will it be blocked in as part of the main building? I'm just wondering about how much light there would be to the inner part of the property.
Well, the rear extension is going to cover that area. It's going to come out from the rear wall. There's obviously a window in the side elevation there, so there'll
Right.
be light to the roof.
That's,
There's 3 roof lights as well.
yes, so there isn't actually a gap between this extension and that window. It's
No,
going to
it
be,
comes from the rear wall out.
yeah. So presuming that'll either be blocked up or it'll just be left as an opening, I suppose. But that's probably not detailed in the plan. So I was just a bit curious about that.
Well,
Thanks very much.
Thanks,
Apologies.
Councillor Woodson.
I was just going to say, so the plans are here on the screen, and actually it does appear this would be blocked up because the room that small window serves would become a bedroom, but it also has this side window on it anyway, so it should still have adequate light, and then that appears to be blocked up and become a wall between the bedroom and the living area.
Any questions? Any other
Sorry,
members like to speak?
I believe Gavin, Councillor Chambers wants to come back again.
Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to say, some of us, quite a few of us looking around, would remember when this building was changed to residential. And I know one of the things that we said then was that we wanted the amount of amenity space that they've got, but things do change. I mean, one of the things I'd like to ask is, with the bins, is there a way that we could have a condition that the bins must be kept in the back garden when they're not being put out for refuge? Because I wouldn't want to have those bins in the alleyway with people going to the gym. It wouldn't really be a good look for Buckhurst, and that would affect the view. So I just wonder if the officer can comment upon a condition that the bins could be kept when they don't need to be out inside the grounds, which I'm sure the applicant would be absolutely fine with anyway.
I think I may answer. I may answer that if that's okay, Chairman.
Yes, indeed.
I don't think we could condition that they have to be stored in the garden. We could condition details of a bin store within the garden. That's fairly common, particularly on flats, to agree the location of a bin store. But if people choose not to store their bins in that bin store and instead put them in the alleyway, there isn't anything we could do about that from a planning point of view. But from what I understand, they have a right of the applicant has a right of access across that access, but they don't have a right to necessarily store their bins out there. So that would be a civil matter that the owner of that access would have to bring up. But we could condition that a bin store be approved in the rear garden.
Okay, that's interesting. I know sometimes when residents leave their bins out, I think I might have been guilty when I went away once on holiday. I had a sticker being told I need to keep it on my premises. So I guess that is not a planning matter, but it is.
That probably would be. I imagine that was probably left on the public highway. So therefore, the Highways Authority would go around stickering that. What you're talking about here would be left on private land, so it would be a civil matter.
I do think a bin storage would be a sensible option for this, and it would encourage them to keep the refuge on site. I can't imagine that would be too much trouble for the applicant anyway. So I would like to recommend that as a condition.
So you'd like to? Can we have a seconder on this condition for Councillor Chambers? Pardon?
I'll do it, Councillor Neville.
You second that. So can we go to the vote on that?
Can we just agree it, Chairman? It seems
Yes.
No dissenting voices, so we take it as agreed. Yeah. Councillor Wixley wishes to say something.
Yeah, I did have my hand up prior to the decision. I certainly agree with having a bin store on the site because I'm well aware of the problems which are caused with applications we've approved before which haven't had bin stores. But going back to the officer's point about whether we can insist on the bins not being stored in the alleyway, I just wonder if there is a case that, for a fire escape purposes, that we could put a condition which would stop bins being stored in a narrow alleyway.
So we've been told we can't.
Unfortunately, I feel the only way it could be controlled would be down the route of a legal agreement. But I think we would struggle to justify that in this sort of instance. As I say, it would be a civil matter. If there is no right to store the bins in that alleyway, then it would be down to the landowner to enforce that.
So,
Councillor Murray.
Chairman, I personally wouldn't be in favour of that condition. I think it's up to the resident to decide whether they want a storage bin in there, in what essentially is their back garden. It's not a communal area for a block of flats. It's an area that belongs to one flat. And I personally think it's up to the resident whether they want a bin store or not for the council to tell them. It doesn't affect the problem it's trying to solve. If a resident or a future resident, starts putting it into the alleyway, that's a civil matter that can be dealt with in other ways. So it's not necessarily going to solve a problem that there might be, and I just don't think it's up to the council to tell an individual flat owner that they need a storage area. Communal flats, completely different matter. I wouldn't be in favour of this condition.
thank you.
We have Councillor Michael Owen who wishes to speak.
Councillor Owen?
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to second actually what Councillor Murray said. I was going to say exactly the same thing. It's just he's making a smaller space outside, and then these storage bins tend to come in big double units. He might want to put one on one side, one on another. He might want to put it in his house for all we know. I don't think we should be telling him where he puts it.
Thank you. Any other comments on that?
I can't see any other speakers, Chair.
Yeah. Could I ask Officer Hendry what you actually understand by this sort of type of condition being suggested tonight, please?
It's perfectly valid to be suggested, Chairman, but I think we'll have to take a vote on it. Now we have some dissension on it. So with your permission, I shall go through just to vote on the condition of a bin storage area.
Right, I totally agree. Can we do that? Thank you.
Okay.
Chairman, I'm happy to withdraw that motion. I mean, I'm open to suggestions. I was just trying to find a way of making sure that the bins aren't kept in the alleyway. And if there's enough members feel that it isn't going to work, then I'm happy to withdraw that.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. But I think we can go for the vote as Officer Hendry suggested.
The proposer is withdrawn and the seconder agrees. There is no need. The condition falls. Councillor Neville, are you agreed to withdraw it?
I'm agreed to withdraw it, yeah.
Okay, then
Okay, so the condition
falls.
The condition falls.
Yeah.
So I think we can take this application to a formal vote.
Okay, Chairman. As always, I'll go through your names one at a time. Can you just please say for, against, or abstain? The recommendation is to grant. So, Councillor Baldwin.
For.
Councillor Beales.
For.
Councillor Chambers.
Abstention.
Yep. Councillor Heap.
Abstention.
Councillor Bob Jennings.
For.
Councillor Kaufman.
For.
Councillor Mead.
For.
Councillor Murray.
For.
Councillor Neville.
For.
Councillor Owen.
For.
Councillor Patel.
For.
Councillor Chris Bond.
Abstain.
And Councillor Caroline Pond.
For.
Councillor Chris Roberts.
Abstain.
And Councillor Deborah Roberts.
For.
Councillor Wixley.
Abstain.
Councillor Rackham.
For.
And Councillor Cher-Bernier.
For.
Okay, hang on, please. That's 13 for, 5 against. So the decision is to grant.
Yeah, Chairman, I think that was wrong. It was 5 abstentions. There were
Sorry.
no votes. Yeah.
Yes, sorry, I meant abstentions.
5 abstentions.
Yeah.
Thank you. So we can go on to application number 10, which is planning application EFP 1376 20 37 Forest View Road, Loughton.
So you may recognise this one from a couple of months ago. It was deferred as we sought some more information pertaining to 2003 application. I'll just run through what came back. So we've had a legal opinion on that. That application was approved in 2003 under EPF 0579. That was for a part 2-storey, part single-storey rear extension and 2-storey side extension. They built the side extension, but the rear element was never implemented. We've had a legal opinion on that, and that is still implementable today, as it was works begun within a 5-year time frame. It was 5 years then rather than 3. So that's actually a deeper rear extension along the boundary of Connaught Avenue than what's proposed here. So I'll just briefly run through what this is proposed under this current application. So this is Forestry Road is and the adjacent house 31 is actually on Connaught Avenue, so the rear backs onto the rear garden of the application site. Next screen. And again. So this application seeks a part single-storey, part double-storey re-extension and some alterations to the front facade. It's going to be the double-storey extension is going to be 5 meters in depth, and will go to roughly in line, or just short of in line with the conservatory at number 35 Forest View Road to the right there. And it'll still be within the building line of 31 Connaught Avenue. Next slide. You can see the land levels do fall to the rear and from left to, or right to left rather, uphill. See there, you can see Connaught Road. It's got a prominent front elevation on Forest View Road, as well as being on Connaught Avenue. Next. So you see the conservatory there and the rear windows of Connaught Road, 31 Connaught Road onto our site. Next. That's the conservatory. You can see there's some screening there, fence and some hedges there. The single-storey element will be along the boundary of 35 Forest View Road there. As you can see, so it will come from roughly where the eaves is and out to around 4.5 meters. Next. Yes, it's going to come from just below the on the eaves of the 2-storey element. That's the part that's been implemented, by the way. So of the 2003 application. So next screen. Next. So some of these do you want to go on to what we got some plans actually that compare the so that's the existing plans. Go ahead, sorry. So you see the double-storey rear extension, the crown roof, and then the flat roof there, the single element on the boundary of 35 Forest View Road. They're raising the ridge height by 0.5 meters, as you can see there, and they're removing the gable elements as well to the front, which are there now. Next. So crown roof, go back, sorry. So there is a terrace element there that's stepped in from the sides. You see again the flat roof there and the crown roof. I see it's within the rear building line of number 35. Next, please. So these are the plans we had in 2003. So that's what it was prior to the 2003 application. You can see there's no side extension there. Next. Next again. Again. So that's what they can implement there. It's actually 5.7 meters double-storey rear extension compared to the 5 meters they're proposing here. Next. You see that again there. The difference with these applications is you'll be able to see on the next slide. Again, one more, sorry. So this is what they can implement as of the 2003 application, highlighted in purple, and this is what they can implement if this is granted today. So in orange is what they can have today. So you see it's higher, but it's not as deep as what they can implement under the 2003 application, which is now live. The difference being obviously is that there's no raise in the ridge of the old application, and it's no single-story rear extension on the side of the house abutting 35 Forest View Road. We've had a few objections to this. I was just going to run through them now. 31 Connaught Avenue, which is to the left of the site. They've objected on grounds of loss of privacy and overlooking, overshadowing and loss of morning light and sunshine for the rear conservatory and garden areas, dominating and overbearing. 35 Forest View Road have objected on grounds of the proposed depth of the terrace area will have a detrimental impact on the privacy due to differing land levels. Single-story re-extension is gross overdevelopment and out of character with the wider area. And the roof lights causing a loss of privacy. 16 Forest View Road, which is across the road, they've also objected. They've echoed the comments of 35 Forest View Road, and they've also objected to the loss of the front dormers elements to there now. The Loughton Residents Association Plans Group have also objected. There's grounds of increased sense of enclosure to the conservatory of number 35 Forest View Road. The flat roof for the single-story extension could be used as a terrace. We've had a condition to prevent that, as we always do now with flat roof extensions. It breaches the rear building line along this part of Forest View Road and relies on number 31 Connaught Road to justify this, which would set a dangerous precedent for change the character of Forest View Road. Significant loss of light for the ground floor flank windows and some partial loss of light for the lower conservatory and bedroom windows in number 31. Overdevelopment and loss of privacy for number 31 as well. There was no objection subject to conditions from the landscaping tree officer or the land drainage team, and there was no objection from Loughton Town Council either. So the main issues are its impact on both the neighbours. In regard to the impact on number 31 Connaught Avenue, well, as you can see, there is a live application, or live implementable scheme that you see there, which is actually deeper. So it kind of alleviates a lot of the issues number 31 have brought up in regards to loss of privacy and overlooking. Because you could argue that what they can implement now is worse upon neighbouring immunity in terms of loss of privacy. And the windows as well. Graham, do you want to go back to the pictures? There are some rear windows of Connaught Road are already obscured partially by the where the building is now. The first floor rear window you can see there, well, you can't just see, it's just outlined. That's already obscured. That serves a landing. The implementable scheme will block out the windows to the rear just as much as this one will as well. So impact on number 35, it's set in, the double-story rear element is set in 3.2 metres away from the boundary of number 35. So it's considered that that alleviates many of the overbearingness and the increased sense of enclosure for the conservatory area. And the terrace area, the privacy, that's now been stepped in. You see on one of the plans, it's been stepped in from the side, so that alleviates many of the overlooking concerns as well. And hence why it's been proposed to be granted.
Thank you. I think something happened with the sound. Right, we have a speaker on this application, Mr. Mohid Duvevdi. Please, would you like to start your 3 minutes?
Sure, thank you very much. Good evening, members. I am Mohit Duvevdi. I hope you're able to hear me well. In the next few minutes, I'll be reading objections from 3 parties. The first one being John Walker from Loughton Residents Association Plans Group. He has submitted a more recent report to the Head of Planning and Economic Development Civics Office on 15th November. And the key points from that report to object this application and any relevance to 2003 application are as follows. The additional drawings which have been just presented by the planning officer, they are misleading. They are deliberately crafted to make the previous consent look larger than the current scheme. Members should not rely on these drawings to make their assessment without requesting a three-dimensional comparison of the existing, previously approved and currently proposed extensions. He has concluded his two-page report by stating, overall the extension is larger than the previous approval, will impact the neighbors and will change the character of the Forest View Road. The proposed extension represents an overdevelopment of the site and planning permission should be refused. I'm now going to read my own objection. The proposed extension will have a significant impact on our existing total privacy and impact on natural right. In relation to the 2003 planning application, it should be noted that it was much lower in height because the extension was approved to happen at existing ground level, thus resulting in a very different window and ridge height than the new application. I will also echo John Walker's comment that the additional drawings represented by the planning officer in his report are misleading. The new application extends 5 meters for the two-story single extension across the full width of the house with the height that is 2 meters higher than the 2003 application. With this height difference of 2 meters and bringing the windows considerably forward by 5 meters, including the window of the proposed loft extension, the applicant will completely overlook into our garden. This is detrimental to our privacy and will result in loss of amenity. As the 2003 application should not be considered as the basis for approving the new application, as the two applications are totally different plans. And the difference in height between the two applications is a key factor to reject the new application. I'm going to now read the last objection from Clive Woodford, who is the owner of 35 Forest View Road. The 2003 plans involve a two-story extension that is set down to garden level, allowing a saving of at least 2 meters at overall roof level and extends just 5.5 meters at half house width into the rear garden. The 2020 plans, however, are asking for additional 10 meters deep extension into the garden at full house width at the existing elevated terrace level of 1.5 to 3 meters above their terrace. I certainly do not consider this height difference as a slight, which is the term used by the planning officer in his report to the committee. This elevated terrace level plus a 3-meter high single-story building right on the boundary will create an overpowering impact, causing enclosure, sunlight, and privacy concerns affecting their conservatory. We strongly consider that this should not be allowed, which is a view supported by the LRA Plans Group. The 2003 application should not justify proceeding with the current proposed overdevelopment. Therefore, we all hope you can
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Members.
So, sorry, Chairman, we have one more speaker on this.
Oh, right.
Daniel
Oh,
Brandon,
so we
the
do.
applicant's agent. Yep.
So can
Yes,
we
yes.
have Daniel Brandon?
Hi there, can you hear me?
You have 3 minutes, Daniel.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Great, fantastic. Good evening, everyone. Firstly, I trust the planning department and committee members have reviewed my client Eamon McAllister's email, which was sent to you all Monday afternoon. If you haven't seen a copy of this letter and wish to see a copy, the planner has a copy and can present it in after my speech. As the planner just mentioned, we can now confirm the works approved under application 057903, which include a 5.7 metre deep double-storey rear extension, are still implementable, and therefore the consent is live. We have provided additional drawings to the planning department showing the extent of this application, which can be constructed to a depth of 5.7 metres as opposed to a depth of 5 metres on the current application. I'd now like to address a neighbour at 31 Connaught Avenue. 31 Connaught Avenue and the local residents association were not aware of the 057903 planning application approval prior to making their objections. Their objections in respect of loss of light and privacy are not relevant to this application. The window on 31 Connaught Avenue rear wall, which faces onto my client's house, already has limited light and does not serve a habitable room, so offers no weight to a planner's decision making. The proposed rear extension will not significantly impact on the present relationship in regard to overlooking and loss of privacy between the two properties. The rear extension does not project any further than neighbouring structures and does not extend past any rear building line. In fact, on both sides, neighbouring buildings project further than our proposed extension. I would now like to address our neighbour at 35 Forest View Road. The application site sits on slightly higher land than our neighbours at 35 Forest View Road. The proposed rear single-storey extension will be well within the boundary of the site. However, we have reduced its projection from the two-storey extension to ensure it reduces any impact on the living conditions of our neighbour. At the September meeting, some councillors stated that they were concerned that the proposed single-storey extension would restrict light to the roof of the adjacent conservatory. We wish to point out and have a planning officer to confirm that if an occupier wishes to build an extension which is constructed of glass walls and roof, then there is no planning requirement for the neighbouring property to provide a right of light to the glass roof. Furthermore, if an occupier constructs a conservatory as opposed to a solid structure, this should not impede a neighbour from erecting an adjacent single-storey extension. In addition to our neighbour's concern of the height of the proposed terrace area, we have redesigned the terrace area and staggered the layout inwards 1.6 metres to 3.7 metres away from the boundary to ensure no overlooking and any significant loss of privacy will occur to our neighbour. In reviewing other similar applications along Forest View Road, should the planner or committee members require additional measures of screening to protect any privacy concerns, a privacy screen can be erected on the terrace by way of a planning condition. I would now like to address the committee members with some key points. All of the proposed extension is set well within the boundary of the site and not on the boundary. The proposed extension is considered to be more in keeping with the varying local styles and would be aesthetic improvement to the street scene. The material upgrades will aesthetically enhance the dwelling's facade. The proposed extension has overdevelopment when related to nearby properties at 53 and 45.
I think your 3 minutes are up. Do you want to just finish off your sentence?
Yeah. Both these dwellings have the same relationship and orientation with the corner property fronting Connaught Avenue, like the subject site, and recently built deeper extensions and raised decking areas to a similar depth of 41 Forest View Road. This is further evidence that the application is consistent with recent extensions in the vicinity approved by the local authority.
Thank you, Mr. Brandon. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm now going to go to members. Any questions?
Yeah, can I speak as the ward member?
Councillor Baldwin.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Yes, this application is in my ward, so I'll just say a few things about this. I have been to visit the rear gardens of both neighbours at number 31 Connaught Road and also at number 35. This is a very, very significant and large extension. It does span the width of the whole house previous to the 2003 application. Now, in the 2003 application, the rear part of it was not built, but the side extension was built, and that is a side facing number 35. Now, this proposal here is five meters outwards across the span of the whole house. The previous 2003 application was not across the span of the whole house. And I think another point here I would like to make is that there is a little bit of a discussion going on here about the actual height. This figure of 1.5 meters comes up, and also the increase in the reach height of 0.5 meters. But also the ground floor is taken, I believe, from the terrace. Now the terrace is about 1.5 meters higher than the garden, which slopes downwards. And I believe that is this disparity between the level of the terrace and the garden, which gives it a significant increase in the height. And that is a great concern to me, because that increase in height creates a very much a huge bulk of a building which does overlooking number 31 Connaught Road and number 35. It is a huge bulk. Number 31 Connaught Road is affected in a number of ways. The flank window would definitely be cast into shadow, loss of light. There's also a loss of light from their conservatory there, and also there would be overlooking in their garden. They've never had overlooking before, number 31, and they would have a sheer bulk of a building next to them. I think for number 35, they also propose an increase. I mean, if the 5 metre rear extension were not bad enough, they're also the proposal also wants to extend the side extension, and that brings it into line with the conservatory there in number 35. And again, really, I've been there, and it's a significant loss of light, and they're going to be faced with a huge, wall there to their flank, and it really would, I think, cast a shadow over.
Thank you very much.
Over there, yeah.
Do we have any other comments on this application? Planning
Yes.
application?
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Chair, we do. We have Councillor Heap firstly.
Councillor Heap, please.
You're muted, Councillor Heap.
Thank you. As far as I understand it, the permission from 2003 is still extant and therefore can be enacted. So we're arguing about a difference between what we like now and what we liked then, but presumably the permission then was under some kind of either council permission or office of delegation authority. Can we really object to this? That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. We have Councillor Pond next, please.
Councillor Pond, please.
Yes, Chairman, I can't help but thinking this proposal is much too large in relation to its plot and to the amenities of its neighbours. It is much higher and much more oppressive than number 31. It is very high in comparison with number 35, and there are the issues relating to daylight. And the rear projections, you would have to take the building line to be that which is formed by the original rear walls of the main house, and not the bits and pieces of conservatories and odd extensions that you find along Forest View Road. I cannot think we should compare it to what was authorised in 2003, simply because this is a planning application on its own merits. It must be considered on its own merits, irrespective of what could be done under the 2003 permission. And the reason I say that is that we shouldn't really be taking into account the old permission, because we should be treating this one as if it was an entirely new application which had just reached us. And I think you said, the officer said that, or someone said that we were unaware of the 2003 application, and so we probably would be, because that was a decision taken under delegated powers by officers, and I don't think anyone who was on the planning committee, with the possible exception of Caroline, is now on the planning committee, so it has to be treated separately. And in my view, it is oppressive, and if anyone will support me, I would be quite happy to propose a motion for refusal.
Thank you.
Sorry, could I just clarify one thing?
Sorry?
Could I clarify one thing? Which is that once a permission has been started, it is indefinite.
Thank you, Councillor Heap.
That is correct, yes.
Well, if my understanding is that if a permission has been started, yes, the courts have ruled in the past that once it's been started, it can be continued.
Chair?
Yes.
Can we have the next speaker, please?
Yes.
Councillor Gavin Chambers, please.
Councillor Chambers.
Thank you, Chairman. Just stepping back a bit, when the person who was speaking against the applicant said that the officers deliberately misled, I think that is unfair. I don't think any officer of the FDC planning committee I've ever come across would deliberately mislead. They may mislead by accident, but certainly not deliberate. And I thought the plans were very clear. The issue I have with this, I absolutely agree with Councillor Baldwin. I thought he spoke very passionately for his ward. I also agree with Councillor Pond on the point of we should look at each application on merit, and I say that time and time again. However, because of the 2003 planning permission, I do think we're in danger of being sort of open to irrationality, if you like. There was a decision made that we were happy with the 2003 application, or the officers were, as Councillor Pond rightly said. We may not have voted upon it, but I do think we are in danger in some sort of judicial review or review of irrationality on this particular application. So I'm afraid I would be inclined to either abstain or vote for this application at this point.
Thank you. Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Yes, thank you, Chair. We have Councillor
Comments?
Aniket Patel, please, who'd like to speak.
Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry. Can we get an officer's opinion on the last three comments that have been made by Councillor Pond, Councillor Heap and Councillor Chambers? Because I think it's really important that the committee are clear on where we stand on this, that if the permission was granted in 2003 and has been enacted upon, then essentially we are only considering the difference. Now, I take on board Councillor Pond's point, but legally, and with also a precedent being set on what was previously agreed, we as a committee are not, I wouldn't say stuck, because this is a fresh application, but we have a clear steer on what we can and can't accept. So I think it's really important that we get clarity on our legal position on this.
Thank you. I think we can ask Officer Courtney about that. Is this application extant given the 2003 by law?
Absolutely. Yep, Councillor Patel is correct, and other councillors who have mentioned this. Once a permission, provided a permission has been commenced within the timescales, in this case it was 5 years, now it's 3 years, then the permission is live and can be completed indefinitely. The reason this, you may remember this was deferred 2 committee meetings ago. The reason this actually wasn't represented at last month's committee was because we were waiting on that legal opinion. That is what the legal opinion came back saying. Is they were clear that they consider that the 2003 permission was implemented. It was implemented within its timescale, and therefore, even if this application is refused, they can go and complete that development and build that 2-storey rear extension. It is a material consideration. Councillor Pond is right. This is a different application. It isn't the same. It isn't a resubmission of that previous application. It is different. It does need to be considered on its own merits, but we do also need to consider the previous consent. That is a viable fallback position. That is something that can be built even if this is refused, and that is a material consideration that has to be taken into account.
Thank you for that advice and guidance. Any other comments, questions?
We have David Wixley. Councillor Wixley wishes to speak.
Councillor Wixley.
Yeah, I just like clarification on the height difference between the original planning permission which was granted and the current one, because there was some reference made to that. I just seeking clarification, the actual difference in height.
They're raising the ridge of the height by 0.5 metres with this application. There was no raising of the ridge height with the application, the 2003 one. So Graham will show you the...
I'm just going to share my screen and show this, which is the comparison plan provided by the agent. And I think the difference, the discrepancy, we could say, in height is because of this drop in the site, the top topography of the site. So whilst the ridge height is only being raised by 0.5 metres, previously, I'll just flip back to this, as can be seen here, the 2-storey extension was set below the ridge. So then when you consider what was previously below the ridge plus the 0.5, the ridge height is only 0.5, but obviously the comparison between the proposed extension and the previous extension is higher than 0.5, but that's the reason why.
Yeah. Any other questions on this application?
There are no other indications to speak, Chair.
Thank you very much. Well, I think that we could go to the vote on this
Okay, Chairman.
application.
Okay, as always, I'll take you one at a time, please. This is a recommendation to grant, so if you can say for, against, or abstain. Councillor Baldwin.
Against.
Councillor Beales. Councillor Beales.
Councillor Beales.
Sorry, against.
Against, thank you. Councillor Chambers.
Abstention.
Okay. Councillor Heap.
Abstain.
Councillor Jennings.
Against.
Councillor Kaufmann.
Abstain.
Councillor Mead.
Against.
Councillor Murray.
Against.
Councillor Neville.
Abstain.
Councillor Owen.
Against.
Councillor Patel.
Abstention.
Councillor Chris Pond.
Against.
Councillor Caroline Pond.
Against.
Chris Roberts.
Against.
Councillor Deborah Roberts.
Against.
Councillor Wixley.
Abstain.
And Councillor Rackham.
I abstain.
And Councillor Cher Bernier.
Abstain.
Okay, 1 minute, please. 8 people were against, 10 people were against and 8 abstained. So the recommendation is now fallen to grant. So we need a recommendation for refusal.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to propose the following motion for refusal. The proposal would be over dominant in relation to numbers 35 Forest View Road and 31 Connaught Avenue in both height and bulk, and would interfere with the supply of light and thus the amenity of number 35 Forest View Road and number 31 Connaught Avenue. That's reason 1. Reason 2, projection beyond the building line established by the main rear walls of the properties in Forest View Road would be inappropriate. That concludes my motion. If someone will support me on
Well,
it.
can we have a seconder for Councillor Pond's motion?
Councillor Baldwin's.
Councillor Baldwin, you seconder.
Yes.
Thank you. So we could go for a vote on this
Yes,
refusal.
we can.
Yes.
Okay. As before, this is for refusal. I shall ask for, against, or abstain. Councillor Baldwin.
For.
Councillor Beales.
For.
Councillor Chambers.
For.
Councillor Heap. Councillor Heap.
Councillor Heap.
Abstain.
Councillor Jennings.
For.
Councillor Kaufmann.
Abstain.
Councillor Mead.
For.
Councillor Murray.
For.
Councillor Neville.
Abstain.
Councillor Owen.
For.
Councillor Patel.
Abstain.
Councillor Chris Pond.
For.
Caroline Pond.
For.
Councillor Chris Roberts.
For.
Councillor Deborah Roberts.
For.
Councillor Wixley.
Abstain.
Councillor Rackham.
Abstain.
And Councillor Chernier.
Abstain.
Okay. That was 11 for and 7 abstentions. So it's refused.
Madam
Without
Chairman, may I propose a way forward?
Yes.
The applicant should submit plans which are much smaller and lower and less bulky and interfere less with the amenities of neighbouring properties.
So that's the way forward. Officer, should we do a vote on that?
No, that's just an advisory, Chairman.
So that will just stand as an advisory.
Yeah.
Chairman, can I also add a way forward, if I may, that actually they could build the 2003 application?
Yes, that is. I think legally that is extant. Thank you very much.
Okay.
So can we move on to the next application? Number 11, EFP 202120, Garage Block, Pentlow Way, Buckhurst Hill.
It's on mute.
Sorry, Suki Dad was going to present this, but she's on mute, and I'm sure she'll let me know if she wants me to present the slides.
Sorry about that. The mouse wasn't following what I wanted it to, where I wanted it to go. It'd be helpful if you did do the slides, if you don't mind, Graham. I appreciate that. Okay, if you can put the location, thank you. Permission is sought for the demolition of the existing garages and replacement with a block of 7 affordable residential units with associated parking and landscaping. This application is before you since the recommendation is for approval and contrary to an objection from the local council and 1 non-councillor resident. It's also a council on site. Can we go to the next slide? This is a Google Earth image of the site. It comprises an access route, green and land containing 11 garages. There's currently a total of 16 car parking spaces on the site. The wider area is characterised by a mixture of flats, masonettes and post-war semi-detached housing. It's within a residential area. Next slide. This is a street view image of the site. Just to remind you, members granted permission for a scheme which provided 7 affordable homes with 12 parking spaces on the site under reference EPF 2650 of 17. This permission is still extant. Next slide, please. This slide shows the relationship between the garages and the neighbouring property at 23 Pentlow Way. The garage wall will be replaced with a 2.1 metre high close boarded fence. Next slide. This slide shows the approved and proposed site plan. The proposed changes include a reduction in the number of parking spaces from 12 to 10 spaces. The cycle store now is attached to the northern flank instead of being inside the building in order to better accommodate the bin store. All 3 existing trees on the site are proposed to be removed and replaced with 12 good quality trees. The building will be shifted 500 millimetres westwards to allow access to a manhole. Can we go to the next slide? This is the southwestern elevation. It's proposed to lower the dormer by about 0.9 metres. and the opaque panelling is proposed to hide the steps. There's an insertion of an openable vent to meet fire regs. The metal cladding is to be replaced with zinc. The height of the building is going to be increased by 50 centimetres to comply with national described space standards. The depth is going to increase by 7.5 centimetres and the width by 6.5 centimetres. Next slide. On the northwestern elevation, the roof opening is being removed and the metal cladding is being replaced by zinc. Next slide, sorry. This is the northeastern elevation, and it proposes that the internal terrace will be extended to align with the facade to reduce maintenance problems. And then on the southeast elevation, there's no other changes which haven't been mentioned. Next slide. This is the ground floor plan. Again, the cycle storage has been removed from the internal area of the building, and the refuge area increased in size to allow for the residents of the wider site to also use this facility. There's an additional double doors within the refuge storage area as well. Next slide. The first floor plan hasn't materially changed. Next slide. Again, the roof lights of the balcony are to be removed. The terrace is going to be extended so that it aligns with the end of the facade. Next slide. No significant material changes to the roof other than the other ones I've already mentioned. The next slide. This slide shows a list of the materials. They're all acceptable. This application has received 5 objections, and the concerns raised were the proposal will exacerbate the parking problem. Cycle storage is not secure. It's an overdevelopment of the site. Impact of the building works to neighbours. This application is a variation to an extant permission. The reduction in parking spaces by 2 will not significantly have an excessive impact on parking provision or highway safety, because it's in a sustainable location and there will be the provision of 7 additional cycle spaces. Condition 17 also requires that details are submitted to the council to ensure that the bike storage area is covered and secure. So it's for these reasons that the application has a recommendation for approval. Thank you. That's the end of my presentation.
Thank you. Members.
Councillor Neville wishes to speak.
Yes, thank you. I'm the ward member for this particular site in Pentlow Way. And I'm going to say what I like about it, first of all. I like it because it's affordable housing, and we need that. I like the fact that there's solar panels on the roof, which wasn't on the previous application. I'm surprised that it's not on the southeastern facing roof as well, because that actually is a larger space, and southern facing roofs are actually better, for getting the sun's rays, and it's only on a small area of the southwestern roof. Of course, this is a garage site, and I've been down there the last few days just checking it out because it's around the corner from me. And on site, there's been about 10 to 12 cars. That's not including those that might be in the garage. There's quite a few cars already on site, and there's no doubt in my mind that with 7 extra properties, you're going to get extra cars. And that could be as much as 7 extra cars. So we're talking potentially, let's say there's 2 in the actual garages and the rest are used for storage. There's potentially over 20 cars having 10 spaces. I like the fact there's a cycle store, but some people have a car and a cycle. So that is potentially a problem on the parking area, because all those cars will not obviously be on site. They will now be moved into Pentlow Way, giving Pentlow Way a parking problem, which it currently doesn't have. That has been my concern all along, and that's why these garage sites can be controversial. One thing the officer didn't, that's one of the things the officer didn't mention, was the SAC, as far as I can say. It's in the report, but it's not mentioned. The conservators of Epping Forest rarely object to anything, in my experience. And there are many other applications where we've deemed there being public transport or things nearby, and yet because there's no parking spaces but there will still be cars, we've deemed that it should fall because of the that planning application should fall because of the SAC. I would like to know what the officer thinks, why she seems to think that there is going to be not an increase in car movements because of this application.
The
Could you answer
reason
that
for
question?
Sorry, yes, I will. Thank you. The reason for that is there was the extant permission which they can build, which is for 12 car parking spaces. This will be a reduction in car parking spaces. So the opportunity to create additional car parking spaces has been reduced. The number of units hasn't changed. So the impact to the SAC is really no different, or you could argue that it's less impactful than the 12 car parking scheme that's already extant.
Thank you for that. I would argue it really matters little where the cars are parked, because if the cars are there, they may be in Pentlow Way somewhere else, and they may actually be quite a distance because there's nowhere nearby in Pentlow Way, because it's quite a narrow bit of road nearby the actual planning application. It doesn't really matter whereabouts the cars are parked. It matters that the fact that there will be a net increase in cars. Maybe we didn't consider that with the last application, because I think we just didn't, and the Conservatives of Epping Forest didn't object last time. But I think that's an important consideration. I'll leave it there for the moment.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, we do. We have Councillor Heap next, who wishes to speak.
Councillor Heap, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the other ward councillor, and I think Pentlow Way does have actually a parking problem, because well, you would be hard pressed to turn up in that street and then park somewhere, and this is going to be exacerbated by these blocks of flats. But that's a side issue. A reduction in parking spaces, well, that's obviously going to make it worse. And also, there is only one electrical charging space being allocated, I think, at this point, and well, that seems odd, given that by 2030, no petrol cars will be allowed to be produced, purely petrol cars. Hybrids, yes, but that's not a thing that we could actually guarantee that you could actually park outside your house and charge. So it's a puzzle why there will be a reduction in parking spaces. And it's not near any kind of public transport. Actually, it's quite a long way from public transport, and that's the problem. There is a bus that runs every 70 minutes, so you never know whether you're going to miss it or not. Needs to be reconsidered, I think.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments on this application?
Yes, we do.
Councillor Pond, please.
We have Councillor Owen, who's been waiting quite some time.
Councillor Owen, you're next. Councillor Pond, you're after Councillor Owen.
The parking point's been covered, but I agree with that. It's really busy down there. I actually just wanted to clarify a point. Buckers Hill Town Council objected because the last application was for affordable housing, and the new one is for market housing. But I noticed when the planning officer spoke, she said it was for affordable housing. Is it for affordable or is it for market housing? Can we just clarify, please?
Yes, it's for affordable. The applicant the agent incorrectly sent the wrong form in initially, and that's why the town council assumed that it was for market housing. So the agent corrected that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Pond.
Yeah, so I have to take issue with Councillor Heath, who I often actually agree with, but in this case, it is within 50 yards of a bus route, the 167, which runs from 5:15 in the morning until 1:45 at night on a 20-minute frequency. So I don't know where he's getting his 70 minutes from, unless he thinks it's on the 549 route, which proves he doesn't know Buckers Hill very well. Or if he does, he's always going around in his car. However, joking apart, I think we do need to encourage car-free developments. Because this is such a sustainable location, I think we should make it a car-free development and preserve a bit more of the green sward, which will otherwise be lost, and put a few trees on it. And if those members who are members of the District Development Committee will know, at the last meeting, we approved a development in Queen's Road, Princes Road, Bakersfield, in which we mooted the idea of a car-free development. And I see no reason why the tenants of this affordable housing should not sign an agreement with the landlord, Epping Forest District Council, not to keep a vehicle within half a mile of the current development. If we are going to make progress towards carbon-free living, then that's the sort of thing we have got to do. And my view was that is that we should adopt that now and make this a totally car-free development.
Thank you, Councillor Pond. Would one of the officers like to comment on that? Suki, you presented the application.
It would require a Section 106 agreement, and then that area, do you want that to be left for the existing residents, or would that be used? What would you want to do with that parking area?
Madam Chairman, I would suggest that hard standing be kept to an absolute minimum, apart from the need to have bicycle storage, and any surplus space returned for use as greensward, and all the current greensward, as far as is possible, be retained.
Are you? Do you want to propose a condition of that nature?
Well, I'd like to hear what other councillors think, Madam Chairman.
Sorry,
because if there is a view that this sort of thing is what we should be doing, then I'd be happy to propose something.
It's for discussion here.
Can I just, before we go on to other members, that we wouldn't be able to condition that as part of this application. I completely and utterly understand and don't disagree with what Councillor Pond is suggesting. We are obviously moving towards encouraging alternative sustainable transport modes and car-free development, and certainly it makes sense that we should make an example of ourselves, being the landlords here. I mean, that may be a discussion that needs to be had with those members who are in charge of the council house building programme. But I don't think that's something we could do here. What's in front of us is the application.
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Right, Chair, we have got quite a few speakers. So the next.
I think Officer Suki Dwari wanted to say something.
Okay.
In response.
I also want to say that the existing car parking spaces are also used by the other residents within that block. So they may feel aggrieved that they've lost their parking space. Whilst, as Graham Courtney says, I applaud the wish to move us to a more sustainable future. But I am concerned that it may cause problems for existing users of that car parking area.
Thank you.
Councillor Chambers wishes to speak.
Councillor Chambers, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I fully agree with the last comment. I can see why a car-free idea is a great idea. This is not the right part for that. Although it's on that bus route, it's still too far away to have a car-free area, and it wouldn't be fair on the residents down there that do park. I just also want to put on record, Chairman, if I may, that I had a really peculiar email this week saying that due to the fact that I had made comments on October the 21st about council house or affordable housing, that I shouldn't be voting tonight. I played those comments back, and I would look at every application on merit, and I'm always open to debate. So for the person who might be watching that, I deal with every application on merit. I was concerned about council and affordable houses in Buckhurst Hill East generally, but that does not mean under any circumstances that I would be biased in that way.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers.
I haven't quite finished, Chairman.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah. So in saying that, I do have some concerns about the application. I am particularly, we very rarely, as Councillor Stephen Neville said, have comments from the Conservators, and I do think I'd like to ask the officer if they could elaborate more on what they're trying to get at there, because we very rarely have any objections. So what is that really about?
I don't know if Suki, should I take
That's
this one?
fine. Go ahead.
So yeah, as Suki stated before, there is an extent permission here. The works, I believe, have commenced, and therefore 7 flats can be built as per the previous permission, and therefore that is the viable fallback, and that's why in this particular instance we're not asking for mitigation against air quality. If there was no previous permission, if it was a fresh application, absolutely we would be saying we cannot determine this. It would have to be held in abeyance. It would be captured by that SAC issue. But because of that previous consent, that extent consent, that is why we're saying we can issue a decision on this. We can't ask for it to be held up and mitigated against.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes, Chair, we have Councillor Wixley next.
Councillor Wixley.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I've got a few comments actually. I think parking is an issue. I don't really want to disagree with my colleague, Councillor Chris Pond, but I feel the idea that people shouldn't park within half a mile of the development, even if people are prepared to walk that distance to where they've parked their car, that's going to create parking stress half a mile away. On the other hand, they may need a bike to cycle to their car, and so they're going to need a cycle rack at that point. So I think, and it's a question of enforcing it anyway, so I think it creates a lot of complications. Just a couple of other things which are drawn to my attention. There was mention of electricity substation in the report. That's in paragraph 13 on page 34. There's no reference to where this is going to go when it gets moved, and I don't know. There have been sort of issues around the health of people living near electricity substations, and I think that's potentially an issue. I don't know factually how strong that case is that people can be affected by living next to electric substations, but that would be a concern of mine because it hasn't been pointed out where that's going to go. I couldn't see any reference to bin storage when the officer gave a presentation. And another thing which I'd also be interested to know about is a reference, again on the same page, page 34, in paragraph 12, to the one-day travel vouchers. I just wondered how long these last, if they're time limited, because at the moment in the COVID situation, and hopefully by the time this development is built, we won't be in that situation, but I just wondered how long they were valid for, because at the moment people have not been encouraged to use public transport to get to work. So I think there are all sorts of issues, and I'm also concerned about the point about the Conservators as well, what they've said. I just wonder if some of those points could be answered. And also, I was a bit, not a criticism of the officer who presented the case, but it would have been useful if she'd had a cursor to point out some of the developments that she's referring to, because it was a bit difficult to follow it on the drawings.
Thank you.
And thank you, Councillor. Shall I share my screen? Would that be the best way? And I can then address those issues.
I think in relation to the bin storage, and if you've got any information about the electricity substation.
Yes, I'll just get the slideshow up, and I'll just share my screen. Can you see it?
Nope.
No, not yet.
Sorry.
I don't.
It might be easier if I just get Graham. Do you mind just?
No, I'll tell you,
Sorry.
don't worry about the presentation. I actually have the plans here from the file. So this here is the existing substation,
and it's moved to the back.
And then it's to be relocated back here.
And the bin store is within the internal area.
I'm sorry to butt in. I didn't see where the substation is going to go.
Oh, apologies. So it's here at the back. I don't know if my cursor's
right
working, but it's around here where I've just added the blue section.
So is that still going to be near habitable buildings? I think it probably is, isn't it? The other block of flats.
Well, the block of flats here, and obviously this is the rear garden of the neighbour. But as I say, the original is here, which is actually very close to this house here, and obviously adjacent to this.
I can see that. Yeah, I'm not clear from that whether it's further away from habitable buildings or not. It looks as if it probably is.
I think it's closer to some and further from others. It's
I'm not really too happy about that unless we've got some factual information about the risk to residents from that substation.
Thank you. Any other questions?
What about the bin store, please?
Oh, apologies. Yep, Suki, if I put the plans up.
So
sorry.
If you can see, bin store is in where the cursor is. So that whole area is going to be the bin store for all of the flats within this block.
And
yes, I think you showed us that the first time round.
Yeah, I may have missed it. But what about the travel vouchers? Is there a shelf life to those?
There would be, but I mean, it would be. I think they're a few months. I don't know the exact date. I think it's.
I understand. I believe that they're Essex County Council run or subsidised. So I don't know if we have that information as to what the shelf life is on those.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yes. Chair, we have next. Let's have a look. Councillor Patel, please.
Councillor Patel.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's worth remembering that we do have current planning permission on this site. So again, we are only considering the changes from the existing planning permission to what's been proposed this time around. Just tackling the subject on loss of car parking spaces, reduction from 12 to 10 spaces. We still have seven flats and essentially eight bedrooms. So providing 10 spaces, in my opinion, is still sufficient for this site. What I want to be clear on, though, is that we're not losing any disabled spaces. So I think that's very important to ensure that those residents are safeguarded in that respect. Can I clarify, though, just in terms of, comments made around soft landscaping, etc. This proposal states that there's going to be 12 trees on the site. Can I confirm, or can the planning officer confirm whether that's an increase or a reduction in what was previously granted permission for? Just want to say that this development actually tidies up this area of Buckstall East and Pentlow Way. Those garages are becoming an eyesore now, and I think this scheme come forward will enhance the area and enhance the properties around locality and the properties around them. Just in terms of the existing parking, though, none of the cars that park in that area don't actually have designated parking spaces as such. There's nothing actually designated, as in a car parking base designated from the picture that was used in the presentation. A couple of the cars are actually on the verge itself. So this, as again, just to state again that this development will tidy up this section of Pentlow Way, and I will be supporting this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we've had a lot of discussion on this.
Chairman, I did ask. Apologies to interrupt you. I did ask a question. Sorry, of the officer.
Oh, right. Okay.
The disabled space, there wouldn't be a reduction in disabled spaces. The original spaces were 12 standard spaces. This one would, although it's a reduction, would introduce one disabled space, mobility space.
Yeah, so just for clarity, that this space here is proposed as a disabled space, which is, I don't know if you can see, it's outlined in red. And also this plan helpfully shows the proposed landscaping. So there are 12 trees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's the proposal, is to plant the 12 trees. And as you may remember, that's the street view. So that's what we've got at the moment.
Thank you. So, any other questions?
Yes, Chair, we still have two speakers that haven't spoken yet, which are Councillor Owen, I believe, and Councillor Kaufman.
I have actually spoken already, but thanks for letting me come back. I'll be very quick. I just want to say on the carless developments, I'm not a fan myself. I think, if you've got a young mother with 2 young kids, you've got no supermarket nearby, we're expecting them to go wait 20 minutes for a bus with 2 young children, pick up the shopping, come back with 10 bags. I just think it's not realistic, especially when we only provide 1 electric charging point, if Councillor Heap's correct. I think we really need to go down electric charging points before we start banning cars, to be honest. That's my bit anyway. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kaufman.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just be quick. We're between a rock and a hard place. We have given a planning consent anyway, so we have to work from that basis. I think this scheme is better. We do need to provide the affordable housing. This is an affordable housing scheme. It's for 6 1-bed flats and 1 2-bed flats. And I don't know if it's controversial or not. If it's controversial, I apologise. But could we give preference to those who say they don't want a car? There's a huge housing list. We need to provide housing. Is that a good suggestion or not? I'm not sure. But we're working from a position where there is already a planning consent in place. I think this is a better scheme. Thank you.
Thank you. Suki, Officer Suki, would you like to come back on that?
It would be very difficult to require future residents not to use that parking space. We would have to have a council-wide controlled parking zone for them and remove their name off it. So I think in this case, it wouldn't be feasible to do that.
Thank you. I can see Councillor Murray. Do you put your hand up?
Yes, I did. Just to respond to Councillor Kaufman, I understand the sentiment, but I think in terms of social housing, the need housing, from my view, and it's not for us to decide tonight, but housing need has to take first priority in allocation, not whether they're prepared to use a car or not. I understand it's an issue, but it's such a scarce resource. It's got to be a housing need for me every time.
Thank you for that correction.
Thank you. Well, we've had a long discussion on this already approved application.
Sorry, Chairman. I just want to make one comment, which is I believe the new parking is unallocated. So what we're trying to do is create communities apart from just granting planning, and we're going to create a problem by having unallocated parking.
Unallocated parking.
I'd like to propose a condition, not a comment, Chairman, a condition at this point.
Yes.
Thank you. So my condition is, I don't agree with Councillor Kaufman with the, I think it would be legality issues of discrimination with the car point, but my condition is that there should be 2 disabled spaces, not 1. I think that would be more attractive and they're one-bed flats. That area has already a lot of disabled people down there. My condition is to have 2 disabled car parking spaces. I feel I could support it with that.
Thank you. So would anyone like to?
Yes, please, Chair, I'll second that.
You'll second that. So can we?
Sorry, Chairman, can I just ask a question about that before I know how to vote? If this is not, unless I'm wrong, if this is not highways and it is housing land, is that enforceable? Is that an enforceable? It's a condition we can probably do, but is it actually enforceable as disabled parking only if it's actually housing land and not highways land?
Would one of the officers like to come back to Councillor Murray on that?
I mean, Councillor Murray is correct. I mean, certainly we could condition and insist on 2 disabled parking spaces being shown, being put in. But in terms of non-disabled residents using those, we would be unable to enforce against that. And unlike, as he says, on if it was highways land, then there are enforcement. There are ways for Essex to enforce against that. But on private land such as this, there would have to be some form of enforcement, probably from the housing department. But it wouldn't be something that we from planning could enforce. But we could insist on like 2 disabled parking spaces being put in.
Okay, so should we go for the vote on Councillor Chambers' condition to go to support on that? So who seconded it?
I did.
Yeah, Councillor, yes, Councillor Rackman. Adrian.
Okay. All right. Just to vote on this condition of having 2 disabled spaces instead of 1. Again,
can I stop you? Sorry. I'm really unclear on this. We have 12 spaces at the moment. How many of them are disabled at the moment?
1.
So can I just interject? The extent permission has 12. None of them are disabled spaces. If we have the condition which requires a second disabled space, then it's going to reduce the amount of parking we can get on the site. So that's a factor to bear in mind.
So we're going from 12 to 8 with 2 disabled. So we're going down to 6, plus potentially we're going down to 5 because you're going to have to make them wider anyway, right? And we're moaning about a lack of parking, and I'm not sure about this. Okay.
The reason I say it is I know the ward, and I know Simon Heap and Stephen Neville will, and there is a lot of disabled people down in that area, particularly. That's the reason why we say it's full with social housing. But again, if there's more objections,
so let's go. Should we go for the vote anyway and see how everyone thinks? So, Adrian, can we kick that off, please?
Okay. For 2 disabled spaces, just 4 against or abstain, please. Councillor Baldwin.
4.
Councillor Beales.
Abstain.
Councillor Chambers.
4.
Councillor Heap.
4.
Councillor Jennings.
Against.
Councillor Kaufman.
Abstain.
Councillor Mead.
Abstain.
Councillor Murray.
4.
Councillor Neville. Councillor Neville.
I was muted. 4.
Yeah. 4. Thank you. Councillor Owen.
I'm going to abstain. I don't know.
Okay. Councillor Patel.
4, please.
4. Sorry. Yep. Councillor Chris Pond.
4.
Caroline Pond.
Abstain.
Councillor Chris Roberts.
Abstain.
Councillor Deborah Roberts.
Abstain.
Councillor Wixley.
Abstain.
Councillor Rackham.
4.
Councillor Cher Bernier.
Abstain.
Okay. Right, it was 8 for, 1 against, and 9 abstentions. So that's carried, Chairman.
That's not carried. That
no, it is carried.
Oh, it is, did you say?
It is, yes.
Oh, it is carried. Okay, but it should not.
Sorry.
So that condition, so can we go for the, can you advise me?
Sorry. Could,
Can we advise?
sorry, Chair. Could Councillor Neville come back, please?
No, I think we've had all, I think this has gone on now for a long, long time. And I think we've covered all entities.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I must interject that Councillor Neville is one of the ward councillors. I think he
Yes,
should
but
be allowed
Councillor
to come.
Neville has been the first and had a lot of say and been extremely helpful and interesting, being the councillor in Buckhurst East. Go on, Councillor. Can you be as fast as quick as possible?
I will be as fast as I possibly can. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just point out that under the current system, we have 16 spaces for 16 cars, 16 properties on site. We are now reducing that down to 10 for 23. That was just a point of clarification based on what Councillor Patel said.
Okay,
So,
much appreciated. Thank you. So,
okay, Chairman.
Adrian, can you advise which way we go now?
Okay, we are voting for the recommendation, which is to grant, with the extra condition of having 2 disabled spaces, which was just agreed. So again, for, against, or abstain, please, from councillors. Councillor Baldwin.
For.
Councillor Beales.
For.
Councillor Chambers.
For.
Councillor Heap.
Abstain.
Okay. Councillor Jennings.
For.
Councillor Kaufman.
For.
Councillor Mead.
For.
Councillor Murray.
For.
Councillor Neville.
Abstain.
Councillor Owen.
Against.
Councillor Patel.
For.
Councillor Chris Pond.
For.
Councillor Caroline Pond.
For.
Councillor Chris Roberts.
For.
Councillor Deborah Roberts.
For.
Councillor Wixley.
Against.
Councillor Rackham.
For.
Councillor Cher-Bernier.
For.
Thank you. That's 14 for, 2 against, and 2 abstentions. So it's passed.
So that's passed, and it looks like that application has been agreed. And as such, that's the last of our planning applications this evening. I'd like to thank all of you. Thank you very much for coming along. It's been an interesting meeting, and thank you for all your comments, and have a good journey home. I'll end this meeting now at 8:46.
Thank you, yes. And you have a speedy journey home yourself.